Okay, I want to say hello everybody. Welcome to this video. It's a nighttime video. And this is 20 past midnight, okay? 20 minutes past midnight. Very late. And I've got some pain in my stomach on the right hand side. And it's been painful for nearly a week, and around a week. I'm quite worried about it. I've had pain on my side, around my back here, on my hip, and this area here on the right side of my belly. I'm hoping it's nothing too bad, too serious. I really am. But anyway, in this video, we're going to continue reading Krishnamurti's the First and Last Freedom, book. Here, and we're on chapter 4. And I'm just waiting for another video to upload in the background on one of my other channels. And I thought we'd just get straight to this. And while I'm waiting for that to upload, I will read this and make this video because I've not made one in a couple of days. Here we are. This is Jiddu Krishnamurti's book, The First and Last Freedom. So let's read. Chapter 4. Self-knowledge. The problems of the world are so colossal, so very complex, that to understand and so to resolve them, one must approach them in a very simple and direct manner. And simplicity, directness do not depend on outward circumstances, nor on our particular prejudices and moods. So I'm just reading that clearly for myself. Clearly, you have to think, not just read like a robot. You need to understand clearly. Okay. As I was pointing out, the solution is not to be found through conferences, blueprints, or through the substitution of new leaders for old, and so on. The solution obviously lies in the creator of that problem, in the creator of the mischief, of the hate, and of the enormous misunderstanding that exists between human beings. The creator of this mischief, the creator of these problems, is the individual, you and I, not the world as we think of it. The world is your relationship with another. The world is not something separate from you and me. The world, society, is the relationship that we establish or seek to establish between each other. So you and I are the problem, and not the world, because the world is the projection of ourselves, and to understand the world, we must understand ourselves. That world is not separate from us. We are the world, and our problems are the world's problems. This cannot be repeated too often, because we are so sluggish in our mentality. That we think the world's problems are not our business, that they have to be resolved by the United Nations or by substituting new leaders for the old. It is a very dull mentality that thinks like that, because we are responsible for this frightful misery and confusion in the world. This ever-impending war to transform the world, we must begin with ourselves. And what is important in beginning with ourselves is the intention. The intention must be to understand ourselves and not to leave it to others to transform themselves or to bring about a modified change through revolution, either of the left or of the right. It is important to understand that this is our responsibility, yours and mine. Because however small may be the world we live in, If we can transform ourselves, bring about a radically different point of view in our daily existence, then perhaps we shall affect the world at large, the extended relationship with others. As I said, we are going to try and find out the process of understanding ourselves, which is not an isolating process. It is not withdrawal from the world, because you cannot live in isolation. To be is to be related, and there is no such thing as living in isolation. It is the lack of right relationship that brings about conflicts, misery, and strife, however small our world may be. If we can transform our relationship in the narrow world, it will be like a wave extending outward all the time. I think it is important to see that point, that the world is our relationship, however narrow, and if we can bring about a transformation there, not a superficial but a radical transformation, then we shall begin actively to transform the world. Real revolution is not according to any particular system, either of the left or of the right, but it is a revolution of values, a revolution from Senate values, from sensate values to the sensate values to the values that are not sensate or created by environmental influences. To find these true values, which will bring about a radical revolution, a transformation, or a regeneration, it is essential to understand oneself. Self-knowledge is the beginning of wisdom, and therefore the beginning of transformation or regeneration. To understand oneself, there must be the intention to understand, and that is where our difficulty comes in. Although most of us are discontented, we desire to bring about a sudden change. Our discontent is canalized merely to achieve a certain result. Being discontented, we either seek a different job or merely succumb to environment. Discontent, instead of setting us aflame, causing us to question life, the whole process of existence is canalized and let me read that again. Yeah. Discontent, instead of setting us aflame, causing us to question life, the whole process of existence is canalized, and thereby we become mediocre, losing that drive, that intensity to find out the whole significance of existence. Therefore, it is important to discover these things for ourselves, because self-knowledge cannot be given to us by another. It is not to be found through any book. We must discover, and to discover there must be the intention, the search, the inquiry. So long as that intention to find out, to inquire deeply, is weak or does not exist, mere assertion or the casual wish to find out about oneself is of very little significance. Thus, the transformation of the world is brought about by the transformation of oneself, because the self is the product and a part of the total process of human existence. To transform oneself, self-knowledge is essential. Without knowing what you are, there is no basis for right thought, and without knowing yourself, there cannot be transformation. One must know oneself as one is, not as one wishes to be, which is merely an ideal and therefore fictitious, unreal. It is only that which it is that can be transformed, not that which you wish to be. To know oneself as one is requires an extraordinary alertness of mind, because what is constantly undergoing transformation, change, and to follow it swiftly, The mind must not be tethered to any particular dogma or belief, to any particular pattern of action. If you would follow anything, it is no good being tethered. To know yourself, there must be the awareness, the alertness of mind, in which there is freedom from all beliefs, from all idealization, because beliefs and ideals only give you a colour, perverting true perception. If you want to know what you are, you cannot imagine or have belief in something which you are not. If I am greedy, envious, violent, merely having an ideal of non-violence or non-greed is of little value. But to know that one is greedy or violent, to know and understand it, requires an extraordinary perception, does it not? It demands honesty, clarity of thought, whereas to pursue an ideal away from what is an escape. It prevents you from discovering and acting directly upon what you are. The understanding of what you are, whatever it be, ugly or beautiful, wicked or mischievous, the understanding of what you are without distortion is the beginning of virtue. Virtue is essential, for it gives freedom. It is only in virtue that you can discover, that you can live, not in the cultivation of a virtue which merely brings about respectability, not understanding and freedom. Let me read that again. It says, it is only in virtue that you can discover that you can live, not in the cultivation of a virtue which brings about respectability, not understanding and freedom. Okay. There is a difference between being virtuous and becoming virtuous. Being virtuous, being virtuous comes through the understanding of what is, whereas becoming virtuous is postponement and covering up of what is with what you would like to be. Therefore, in becoming virtuous, you are avoiding action directly upon what is. The process of avoiding what is through the cultivation of the ideal is considered virtuous, but if you look at it closely and directly, you will see that it is nothing of the kind. It is merely a postponement of coming face to face with what is. Virtue is not the becoming of what is not. Again, virtue is not the becoming of what is not. Virtue is the understanding of what is, and therefore the freedom from what is. Virtue is essential in society. It's essential in society that is rapidly, is in a society that is rapidly disintegrating. In order to create a new world, a new structure away from the old, there must be freedom to discover, and to be free, there must be virtue. For without virtue, there is no freedom. Can the immoral man who is striving to become virtuous ever know virtue? The man who is not moral can never be free, and therefore he can never find out what reality is. Reality can be found only in understanding what is, and to understand what is, there must be freedom. Freedom from the fear of what is. To understand that process, there must be the intention to know what is, to follow every thought, feeling, and action. Thought, feeling, and action. And to understand what is extremely difficult, because what is never still, never static. It is always in movement. The what is what you are, not what you would like to be. It is not the ideal, because the ideal is fictitious. Fictitious. But it is actually what you are doing, thinking, and feeling from moment to moment. What is the actual, and to understand the actual requires awareness, a very alert, swift mind. But if we begin to condemn what is, if we begin to blame or resist it, then we shall not understand its movement. If I want to understand somebody, I cannot condemn him. I must observe, study him. I must observe, study him. I must love the very thing I am studying. If you want to understand a child, you must love and not condemn him. You must play with him, watch his movements, his idiosyncrasies, his ways of behavior. But if you merely condemn, resist, or blame him, there is no comprehension of the child. Similarly, to understand what is, one must observe what one thinks, feels, and does from moment to moment. That is the actual. Any other action, any ideal or ideological action, is not the actual. It is merely a wish, a fictitious desire to be something other than what is. To understand what is requires a state of mind. So where is it? So where is it? Yeah, in which there is no identification or condemnation, which means in a mind that is alert and yet passive. We are in that state when we really desire to understand something, when the intensity of interest is there. That state of mind comes into being. When one is interested in understanding what is the actual state of mind, one does not need to force, discipline, or control it. On the contrary, there is passive alertness, watchfulness. This state of awareness comes when there is interest, the intention to understand. The fundamental understanding of oneself does not come through knowledge or through the accumulation of experiences, which is merely the cultivation of memory. The understanding of oneself is from moment to moment. If we merely accumulate knowledge of the self, that very knowledge prevents further understanding, because accumulated knowledge and experience becomes the center through which thought focuses and has its being. The world is not different from us and our activities, because it is what we are which creates the problems of the world. The difficulty with the majority of us is that we do not know ourselves directly, but seek a system, a method, a means of operation by which to solve the many human problems. Now, is there a means, a system of knowing oneself, Any clever person, any philosopher can invent a system, a method, but surely the following of a system will merely produce a result created by the system. Will it not? If I follow a particular method of knowing myself, then I shall have the result which that system necessitates. But the result will obviously not be the understanding of myself. That is by following a method, a system, a means through which to know myself, I shape my thinking, my activities according to the pattern. But the following of a pattern is not the understanding of oneself. Therefore, there is no method for self-knowledge. Seeking a method invariably implies the desire to attain some result. And that is what we all want. We follow authority, if not that of a person, then of a system, of an ideology, because we want a result which will be satisfactory, which will give us security. We really do not want to understand ourselves. Our impulses and reactions, the whole process of our thinking, the conscious as well as the unconscious, we would rather pursue a system which assures us of a result. But the pursuit of a system is invariably the outcome of our desire for security, for certainty, and the result is obviously not the understanding of oneself. When we follow a method, we must have authorities, the teacher, the guru, the savior, the master, who will guarantee us what we desire, and surely that is not the way to self knowledge. Authority prevents the understanding of oneself, does it not? Under the shelter of an authority, a guide, you may have temporarily a sense of security, a sense of well being, but that is not the understanding of the total process of oneself. Authority, in its very nature, prevents the full awareness of oneself and therefore ultimately destroys freedom. In freedom alone can there be creativeness. There can be creativeness only through self knowledge. Most of us are not creative. We are repetitive machines, mere gramophone records playing over and over again certain songs of experience, certain conclusions and memories, either our own or those of another. Such repetition is not creative being, but is it what we want? Because we want to be inwardly secure, we are constantly seeking methods and means for this security, and thereby we create authority, the worship of another, which destroys comprehension, that spontaneous tranquillity of mind in which alone there can be a state of creativeness. Surely our difficulty is that most of us have lost this sense of creativeness. To be creative does not mean that we must paint pictures or write poems and become famous. That is not creativeness, it is merely the capacity to express an idea, which the public applauds or disregards. Capacity and creativeness should not be confused. Capacity is not creativeness. Creativeness is quite a different state of being, is it not? It is a state in which the self is absent, in which the mind is no longer a focus of our experiences, our ambitions, or our pursuits and our desires. Creativeness is not a continuous state. It is new from moment to moment. It is a moment in which there is not the me, the mine, in which the thought is not focused on any particular experience, ambition, achievement, purpose, and motive. It is only when the self is not that there is creativeness. That state of being in which alone there can be reality, the creator of all things. But that state cannot be conceived or imagined. It cannot be formulated or copied. It cannot be attained through any system, through any philosophy, through any discipline, or on the contrary. It comes into being only through understanding the total process of oneself. The understanding of oneself is not a result, a culmination. It is seeing oneself from moment to moment in the mirror of relationship, one's relationship to property, to things, to people, and to ideas. But we find it difficult to be alert, to be aware, and we prefer to dull our minds by following a method, by accepting authorities, superstitions, and gathering gratifying theories, so our minds become weary, exhausted, and insensitive. Such a mind cannot be in a state of creativeness. That state of creativeness comes only when the self, which is the process of recognition and accumulation, ceases to be. Because after all, consciousness as the me is the center of recognition, and recognition is merely the process of the accumulation of experience. But we are all afraid to be nothing because we all want to be something. The little man wants to be a big man. The unvirtuous wants to be virtuous. The weak and obscure crave power, position, and authority. This is the incessant activity of the mind. Such a mind cannot be quiet and therefore can never understand the state of creativeness. In order to transform the world about us, with its misery, wars, unemployment, starvation, class divisions, and utter confusion, there must be a transformation in ourselves. The revolution must begin within oneself, but not according to any belief or ideology, because revolution based on an idea or in conformity to a particular pattern is obviously no revolution at all. To bring about a fundamental revolution in oneself, one must understand the whole process of one's thought and feeling in relationship. That is the only solution to all our problems. Not to have more disciplines, more beliefs, more ideologies, and more teachers. If we can understand ourselves as we are from moment to moment without the process of accumulation, then we shall see how there comes a tranquility that is not a product of the mind, a tranquility that is neither imagined nor cultivated, and only in that state of tranquility can there be creativeness. Jiddu Krishnamurti here. Did you enjoy that, guys? The first and last freedom. We just finished chapter 4. Okay. Sorry for reading fast. I know I was reading pretty fast. I tried to stay focused enough there, and I didn't get sidetracked or say any of my thoughts on it or anything. But a lot of it's so true. It's just the way he words things, you know. He's got a way with words. oh, Murty. And yeah, you know, very intelligent man, well spoken, well written in his works as well, you know. And here we are, you know. This is a individual. Oh, sorry, no. Where am I? Chapter 4. We read that one. Where's chapter? Where's the title? I skipped straight past the title. I want to get it on the screen again. Hold on. Yeah, that's it. Self-knowledge. So these are some really deep, topics. They really are, you know. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Okay, and there's a lot to think about there, you know. I'm gonna go to sleep now. Rest my stomach because my stomach's in pain. You take care, okay, guys. Thanks for watching. More to come. I think it's a good book. I've also been reading Alice in Wonderland on the side to myself. Take care, yeah? Thanks for watching.